behavior is good because we're not noticing it. We're going to notice the bad behavior. We're going to notice when they tear up the garbage and poop on the floor and bark at the neighbors all day long, right? It's going to get our attention. But what do we want to put our attention on? What we want more of. Let me repeat that. What do we want to put our attention on? What we want more of. So if you want more peace and a quiet mind, then start to reward that part of your brain, just like you would your dog or your horse or your cat. My cat sits for food. It's pretty hard to believe because I wasn't sure that I can do this with him because he was grabbing onto my legs and scratching me. And I didn't give him any attention until he got off me and quick got a reward. As soon as he got off, quick, get a reward. So we got to start with those little teeny bits, and we can do this for ourselves too. Is that where you were going? I just went off on a...
Yeah, that's perfect. You know, because there's something that happens. There's a belief system. Okay. So we believe something. We believe in cultures. We believe in perspective, like your perspective is to do it this way or react this way. You have a judgment. We have a sea of judgment. This shouldn't be, this means this. We're like these meaning making machines. And that gets us in trouble because you're not 5 anymore. You're not 10 anymore. You're an adult, right? And what you have a say in the matter and you have choice in your life. And I know sometimes we walk around like we have no choice. They did it to me. And that's what we call the lower model of the world, is they are doing it to me. Physically, mentally, emotionally, if it's your food, if it's your time management, they are doing it to me. And what we like to do in this work is like really stop and pause and observe and notice, what are my value systems? And I think today, I'd like to talk about values because, I mean, I don't remember in elementary school or high school, they're like, yeah, I do remember values in math, right? Like this is the value. So I know a couple classes before I talked about what do you value? You know, do you value? And I did through my marriage, through my, I always thought like, what do I value? Being right or being happy? And I had to keep that in my forefront, be happy or be right. And so like, what are you valuing? Being upset, being angry, being right, or making the other person wrong? Because sometimes we can do it in reverse. We can make someone wrong for how we feel.
Yeah. So how does this feel for those of you listening?
Feels like
story.
Stop always being the victim in every single story.
Yeah.
Getting the finger pointed at you.
You feel like we're pointing our finger at you?
No, that's
No?
helpful. I'm talking about another person when you say happy or being right. But then there's the in-between where they're pointing a finger at you and you get judgmental. Where do you put your values? And, you know, this is what I'm learning.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're going to judge people, but people are also going to judge us. And are we going to let their judgment influence our happiness?
Exactly.
And sometimes we do, especially when you're in relationship with someone else or in a job, because there's that part of the survival part that is fearful. So you have value systems and then you have either confidence or fear. So there's, depending on your level of attachment, right? Some of us are anxiety driven. Some of us are, I'm more aloof, like, okay, I'm out of here. It doesn't work. Okay, I'm done. Right. So I detach before they detach. So what is it and how are we valuing that part of us that wishes that they valued us? So if we value the other person's value more about us, we're in trouble. Because when they
People
leave,
pleasing,
say that again?
people pleasing.
Yeah. And we want to please our partners. We want to please our children. We want to please our boss. And it's why. Why do we want to do that? Because we get something in return. We get rewarded. We're the dog. We're behaving. We're behaving and
It's true.
You get the treat.
You guys would not be allowed to say that, right? Oh, that's funny.
But how's that roll into, conflict? If we're, in a situation and there's conflict there and we're not going to allow it to get angry and we step away from it and go back to it, but not a lot. I guess it's a fine line, right? Because conflict is I have to be right, they have to be right. There's a conflict there, and somebody has to give in, or there has to be a compromise, or there has to be something. And in the process, you have to control your emotions and your anger towards the person that you're trying to compromise with.
Why do we want to be in sync so badly that we're willing to fight? Like, where did we learn that, ooh, I want them to think like me, or I want them to do it my way, or I want them to do this, so we'll fight? Where would that even, how does that even make sense if you really think about it?
Well, it's learned behavior from the environment we've grown up in. We learned it from our parents, our grandparents. We learned it from colleagues at work. We learned it in school. We learned it
Exactly.
from
There's a story about a
Catholic school.
guy.
We learned it in Catholic school with the nun with the ruler.
We're not allowed to do that anymore.
they didn't have rulers back there then, Brian.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's old.
I got scars.
I can agree with him. Yes, he
Right.
did.
But
I
there's
got
a guy who
crooked
goes fishing, right? And he keeps catching, he goes fishing with his buddy, and they set up this whole plan to have a day of fishing. They both love it. They haven't gotten together in a long time. They go fishing. And every time his friend catches the big one, he keeps throwing it back. And the guy sitting next to him is scratching his head like, man, I thought we're out here to catch the big ones. And this guy keeps throwing them back. So after like the fifth big one, he's like, I can't stand it anymore. Can't figure out how come you're throwing the big ones back. And he said, oh, because my grandpa taught me that if they're 9 inches, they fit in my pan. So I always throw the big ones back. Like if we're raised with a certain mindset and a thought process, we don't question it. Why? Right?
Yeah,
So,
those are legacies, right? Legacies that are passed down, not the ones you
right.
want.
But it doesn't make any sense. We want to be in sync with someone. We want to be in harmony. We want to be in love. We want to be in a beautiful relationship. So let's fight. Food for thought.
Let's fight because if we fight, that's how we got our way back, back when you were
Dad did, or
alive.
mom did, or your brother did, or your grandpa, or somebody.
Right.
I see people fighting as a form of connection. Unfortunately, even though it's negative, you're still getting the person is still getting the attention that they so long for. And even if it's negative, it's connection. And some people have not learned how to have positive connection because their parents treated them poorly or criticized them or were extremely negative with them. But it's still
Exactly.
connection. Even as a young child, you still wanted that attention.
Yeah. Well, let's call it attention or engagement, but it's not connection, because the definition of connection would be two people going the same direction, or two people like actually wanting the same thing. But it is attention and it is engagement. Like if you're angry and you're yelling at each other, there's engagement, there's attention there. And exactly wherever we learned it from. And so
Matter.
that's when we tap and interrupt it.
Yeah, and you could find out. Thank you, Lisa. That was great because
That was.
it's a dance. It's a dance that you and your partner has. He says this, she says this, your boss says this, you react this way. It's a perfect way of getting what you think you need. Look, growing up, if you grow up in a household where someone's yelling, screaming, and telling you what to do and how to do it, when to do it, when you grow up, you're like, oh, that's love. That's connecting, really not connecting, but it's engaging. I'm important to them because they're telling me what to do. And so we gain and we have habits that no longer serve us. So again, we have belief systems, we have perceptions, and we have, hi Dee, what was the other one? Perceptions and judgment. So now we can pause, observe, notice, and what is it that you want more of, right? Like we talk about, because we want to direct our brain to what do we want more of. And so when you are Brian, in a discussion with an individual, what's the end result? What is it it's better to understand the other person than to love them. I'd rather you understand me than say, I love you, because the way you love me might be not the way I need love. But if you understand me, if you get me, if you hear me, if you value what I'm saying, I don't have to be right or wrong about it. But if someone heard you from that level, what kind of relationship would you have? What kind of outcome would you get by just, not having, it's what we call ego, right? It's like the ego. To us, it's the survival part. It's the part that needs to be right or else, right? Yes, definitely, Dee, acknowledgement. You have a question, Dee?
No, I was just gonna say that I had read something the other day and it was just like, had I loved myself better, I wouldn't be in half of the situations or half of the stuff that I allow, get myself into. So I just think that comes into play a lot too, with a lot of the stuff we go through. Like, it just like, we sometimes, because we want that connection, or we want to feel need, we allow people to hurt us or do things to us because we really just want that love, or that whatever. And if we really take time to know what and love ourselves first, then we won't allow ourselves to be in those situations.
Yeah. Yes, Dee, I think the easiest way to see how you love you is that little you, putting yourself, trading places with that little you. Would you want your little niece, your daughter, your nephew, your cousin, would you want them to experience this relationship? Is another way to see what that would represent. And I want to add that it doesn't matter what other people say, guys. It doesn't matter how they act, how they behave. If you know that's them, if you understand that this is their level of communication, this is their level of emotional intelligence, if they are, because they're not doing it to us to hurt us. Angry people aren't doing it because they want to hurt us. They're doing it because that's the only way they knew how to get the end result that they're looking for. But if you back off and you don't engage, then
So-
what's the playing field? You have an open field and they can see, maybe not. So the hurt is only going to be if we continue to allow. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah,
I could say,
so
Gabby- Go ahead, Brian.
don't necessarily have to agree, but you not and validate what they're saying and say I understand, but without necessarily disagreeing with them, but not agreeing with them.
You kind of cut in and out, Brian. Say it again.
Validating them.
Yeah, like not necessarily having to agree with someone, but understanding and validating what they're saying so that you don't create that conflict, and at the same time not agreeing with what they're saying. So you're not necessarily agreeing with them, but you're letting them know that you understand and validate what they're saying without having to agree with them.
Yes.
Right, and
That-
create a solution, create a solution instead of like, oh, well, if she's right, then I'm wrong, or you like the way we get defensive. What if you both,
Yeah.
if you validate it and then you're like, oh, how does this solution sound? Or you come up with ideas together so that you're kind of doing it together. And Lisa says, don't take things personally, and that's a hard skill to develop, but oh my goodness. And how much easier is it to be around someone that's not so offensive? When
Yeah, we're like-
when Rita comes and visits me, I'm always like, oh, this is so nice, because it's just like, go with the flow. And that's like a person that you're actually attracted to. So if you want to be more attractive, fight less, right? Be the less hard nosed, be the person that they become like, I want to do what you want to do also, because they appreciate that you have the skill of not being offended easily.
Yeah.
Even the Bible says, if it offends you, pluck it out of your eye. It doesn't
And
tell
your
you to
neighbor's
go
eye.
get them, go beat them up. It says, get it out of your own eye. Who's offended? Me.
The
Where's the
observer.
offense in me? Yeah.
And this is where we would go into work with, like, okay, my partner said something. You turn that around and you're like, okay, what am I making it mean? Because you're making it mean something. And it's not a hard skill to develop, Lisa, if you have the right process or the right protocol or the right mindset. You don't get offended when your toddler yells at you and tells you, I hate you. You're just like, oh, interesting. How do you know? What happens inside you that lets you know that you're upset or frustrated with me? You don't take it well, some people do take it, some parents do take it personal, and then they tell them, those are harsh words, you're bad for using them, which stop, don't do that. Because this is one of the ways that they are expressing themselves. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just what's processing for them. And if we can be that space where they can be heard and valued, and we can find out, like, how do you know you hate me? What happened? And you're letting them know that, okay, let's process this, right?
Then
You're
they can grow up and not take things personally because they saw mom or dad be very emotionally intelligent, right?
right. Right. So
Jeff
turn
says,
it around.
Thought women don't want it to be fixed. Expound on that, Jeff.
How do you know, Jeff, that women don't want to get it fixed?
Well, kind of bouncing off what Brian said, like my wife called me today and said that her water heater is not working, and I know she didn't want me to fix it. So she called her dad to fix it, but she wanted me to kind of do what Brian said and
Listen.
relate to her. I don't even, as a man, it's foreign to me, but just to listen.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeff, this
Wanted
is,
you to listen to the water heater being broke?
yeah, because she wants
No,
attention.
listen to her
She wants
talk about it.
value.
Oh,
Jeff, you would be like, water signifies emotions, just so you know, right? Water, gushing, crying, emotional, upbringing. So that's interesting that happened. Yeah. So yes, women, we don't know what women want. So the best thing to ask is ask, like, oh, I see you're calling me because the water heater, how are you doing? How are you doing about this, this, and this? What's going on with you about the water heater breaking, you calling me and your dad fixing it? Unfortunately, it's like you have to have, we're not taught on how to communicate with each other. So superficially, did you call? Did you do this? Did you do that? That's the fix it thing. That's why they say women don't like things to be fixed, is because you're missing the boat. Did you know you were on a boat? What they want, I don't know what they want, but I know what I'd like is like, what's going on with you as a human being? Like, oh, the water heater, how is that for you? Oh, well, it sucks. It's cool. It's no big deal. How is that for you? How is that different? Is that like a different talk? Something happens and you want to know what they're making it mean. Your kid does something. You want to know what they're making it mean.
So respond as if she was a little girl in a way.
Or you respond like you're a little boy too. Like, what would you do when your friend is hurt or is coming over for help or whatever? You'd be like, oh, what's up? What's happening? What are you doing? How are you? Right? Like you're two little friends having a nice conversation about what's happening.
All right.
I'm confused. I would think she'd just want it fixed personally because
Yeah,
like
because that's Tammy. Tammy can do. Tammy can do.
but maybe
logic.
she already had the plans and she just wanted to talk to you about it. Like she already planned on having her dad do it or something.
We don't know. She could have called to say, look, I knew it was going to go out because you didn't take care of it 3 weeks ago, Jeff, like I told you, and you didn't buy the membership that, gets this fixed. And now I'm stuck with the house and you're over there in a nice new place. I mean, you just don't know.
Well, I see that the person in the chat, D, has it right, I think. Yeah, just wants you to say, oh, that sucks. Sorry.
Sorry.
But as a male, we're like, all right, you got to turn this knob and hit this button and
Fix it.
No, that's not the answer. The answer is, oh, that must suck, and you must be upset, and that's tough. Be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Or ask the questions. How are you with that? How's that going for you? Is there anything I can do? Right? Because we're always quick to offer. Even I am. We want to sweep in there, take care of it, but now it's just